Hey guys, um, getting back into the football season. Um, the realignment. I'm gonna start out with realignment because why not? And this is going to go into mainly focusing on where Oregon State and Washington State, basically reiterating from what I've said last year as to why I am kind of a bit surprised as far as why these two teams aren't brought into another conference. I think that they can definitely be brought into another conference. Mountain West is a possibility. Big 12, I think ACC. I think they have a very strong argument, both of these schools, and I'm gonna kind of just reiterate on that. So I'm going to look at, first off, college football. That's kind of been the big talk, the big thing. And, yeah, so we got 107 years worth of information here. Um, and, yeah, historically, Oregon State was not that great. It really wasn't until 1930 when Oregon State kind of started being good, but before that, they were more so kind of a laughing stock. Um, um, Not really playing because they played in the Pacific Coast Conference. They didn't really play many games. I mean, look, like 9 games. They did really well in 26 and 25, but it wasn't until they started taking off when they joined the pack. Um, so in 1958, went to independent. So they do actually have a history of being independent, which is interesting. Then went to the AAWU, and then 1968. So that's 10 years, exactly 10 years after leaving the Pacific Coast Conference. Went to the Pac, and that was the Pac 8 at the time. So, um, when you look at the records, they've been good. They've had some issues, clearly, during certain years that they were not good. I mean, look at that, 92, 93, 95, like they were not good. Oregon State was not good. But the program started turning around, and believe it or not, so Mike Riley was around for 2 years and did not do good. Um, you could say that there was definitely a turnaround, because they were not great at all. But they were turning around, and Dennis Erickson brought them to bowls. They had not really been to many bowls, not since 1964, where they went to Rose Bowl and lost. But Dennis Erickson brought that back. Then when Dennis Erickson left, Mike Riley came in and kept doing a very good job. Um, and then it kind of went down with Gary Anderson, and then came back to being really good with Jonathan Smith. Um, so looking at that, one of the other things that I think gets forgotten is being in the Pac-12. What were the teams that they were playing against? And major wins that Oregon State has had, they have had some top team wins, going against USC, and other teams. It's they've done well. Like I went to the Vegas Bowl when they won. Now that one is kind of like, yeah, they beat Florida, which is a big name school, but Florida kind of lost, a lot of good players, but they went to the Alamo Bowl, Hawaii Bowl, Vegas Bowl again, Sun Bowl, Emerald Bowl. I went to that one actually, the Emerald Bowl in 2007, where Oregon State played Maryland and won. So Oregon State they've been fairly good as far as for history. They also have a Heisman Trophy winner. Um, at the schools, that was at the school. So, and he was actually the Heisman Trophy winner, and had helped Oregon State get their team, bring their team to a Final Four in basketball. And Oregon State's had a very good history as far as for basketball. But I want to focus on mainly two sports. I don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to go over to Washington State. So, Washington State, they've actually got a really good history and historically at college football. Kind of similarly to Oregon State, in the sense of they're kind of in the same realm now as far as for football. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're not good. It's kind of confusing. They're better in the sense that they still have their coach, I believe. And I do apologize. I don't know Washington State as well as Oregon State because I'm an Oregon State fan. But like looking at the history, they've had some bad years, but they've also had some good years. It's more spotty than Oregon State, but they've had some really good years there, especially with Mike Leach. Turned that program around. And Mike Leach is awesome. I miss him. I think it was great for him and for the school having Mike Leach coach at Washington State. But yeah, I mean, look at them even last year. I really hoped that Washington State was going to be good last year, and they did not. Their record flipped essentially, and that was not good. They need to have a good year this year. Now, another thing that's interesting is Oregon State right now 2-0. They have a pretty good schedule. There's a few games that are ones that I'm going to be looking at. Two of them I'm going to be going to. Oregon versus Oregon State. That happens this Saturday. And I'm going to be looking at that very closely. Because that's kind of going to sum up those. Oregon State versus Oregon and Oregon State versus Purdue are going to sum up what I would expect for the rest of the year. It really will show, essentially, does Oregon State get into playoffs even? And that was something I did not expect to even be thinking about. But based on how favorable the schedule is for Oregon State, and Oregon State playing Oregon this early on in the season when Oregon's having issues, clearly. And the amount of issues they have from game 1 to game 2, it's not all those issues are going to be fixed by game 3. And with it being the Civil War, a rivalry game, one of the oldest, maybe the oldest rivalry game, these two teams are going to be going at it. I think both teams are going to play up to the hype. But yeah, there is going to be lots of opportunities for mistakes. And looking at this, and this is getting into kind of a little bit of my thoughts on the game that's coming up, is I would not be shocked if Oregon State won. I know a lot of people broadcasters, whatnot, analysts would say that they would be shocked. But I would not be shocked if Oregon State won, because Oregon State, the way that they're playing, they do a very good job. They have actually minimized their problems from game 1 to game 2. And the problems that they had from game 1 to game 2 were relatively easy fixes. They had to change a few things here and there to have the team flow. And the team had very good flow and synchronization in the game against San Diego State. I do not think Oregon State's going to be turning the ball over 3 times. Whereas when you look at Oregon, they can definitely turn the ball over quite a bit. They have quite a few issues with the line. They're just it's like a pipe that's got a bunch of leaks, and they're trying to fix one leak, and another leak's happening. It's just I feel bad for Oregon, because Oregon's got just so many problems going on. And I don't know how they could fix it. I don't know. I only know that what they need to do is these problems. They need there's simple problems, and then there's major problems. And Oregon needs to work on not getting flags as much, penalties. Oregon can work on it for sure, but that's not insane. But I think for the Civil War, Oregon State needs to be better. But Oregon, on the other hand, just needs to be insanely better as far as for penalties, opportunities, third and downs, their offense. The interesting thing, and this is what I think is kind of the confusing part, and I think it's also the kind of gets into the blunder of fixing their flaws, Oregon's flaws. You look on paper, and their quarterback is doing wonderfully. He is completing most of his passes. The problem is he's not looking down the field as much. He is missing players that are wide open down the field, and is taking the short game, which is fine. But they need to adjust to that. They need to adjust to the short game. And so far, they have proven that they can't. I think it's different. It's a very different team than typically Oregon has. And I think Dan Lanning is going to have to make some major adjustments before this game to adhere to the play style that their players are playing. But yeah, this is my essential thoughts on as far as for football. And then going into baseball, this is major. So, Oregon State has won NCAA championships from 2006, 07, and 2018. They have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 appearances to the College World Series. And they have been regional champs 9 times. Their baseball history is just vast. Their big wins, their championships, have been in recent years. 06, 07, 2018. I don't understand why this gets so easily overlooked. I do think there is a huge following. I did go to Oregon State's baseball game last year, when they were in the tournament, the NCAA tournament. I did watch them win, which was nice, and they played well. They did not play up to the expectations, though, that many had. Um, we did have the #1 draft pick this year. And yeah, I mean, Oregon State's baseball program is top notch. One of the best. If you ever have a chance to go down to Corvallis and check out the field, you'll be shocked how nice the field is. So yeah, 100%. I am shocked why that is not a talking point. We could even go into other things like basketball. Although basketball, it's a little hard because there are some things that Oregon State needs to work on. And same with Washington State with basketball. But also gymnastics. I mean, getting into the other sports, like Oregon State has an Olympian in their gymnastics squad. So, I mean, it's just, to me, it's mind-boggling that so many things that these two schools get overlooked. So, let's go to Washington State. Now, historically, they have been very, very good. See, College World Series runner-up in 1950. College World Series 5th placed. West Regional Champs 1976. They have made regionals. It is not in much comparison to Oregon State, but it's definitely, they've played well. They've had good years and good time frames that they've played well. What hurts them is more recently they have not been great in baseball. They have just not. They have not been shocking out of this world. I mean, you can pause and look at any of these records. But you know, they're not terrible. They're not horrible. It's they've always been in the mix. You say 2009, 2010 NCAA regional, and that was kind of like they haven't really done much since then, and it wasn't until 95, and really it was the 80s and the 70s, mainly the 70s, was when they were really, really strong. But yeah, so I think Oregon State, and this is what I think is interesting, is Oregon State, Washington State, they're lumped in together. I don't know if that actually hurts Oregon State or Washington State as far as for getting into another conference. I think without second guessing, I know the WAC will definitely take them. But the question is, will the Big 12, will the ACC, etc., etc.? And I think it's very possible. I think Big 12 is really what most people are looking at as that's a very good conference. It's very doable. It's not too crazy far, etc., etc. ACC, that's pretty far. But it's not that crazy either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Just wanted to make this video on my thoughts on this. College football season is underway, and it's been great, and I'll be talking about that and giving my thoughts on everything. Have a great day.